Well, how about this? A 10:45 special right on the dot too. This is the Four Verticals podcast for November 24th, 2024. How about that? We are live on a Sunday. Rare situation for us. We're never live on a Sunday. Um, Talking a little bit more quieter than usual because it's late at night. Here when I'm recording this, I'm live, by the way. It's at 10:45 in p.m. Sunday, and 2 hours, less than 2 hours, it'll be Monday morning. So if you're listening to this on the podcast or in the feed afterwards, you know, replay, then this doesn't make any sense to you, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But yes, we are live. Don't think anyone's in the live chat today, like it was a few days ago. We did the show on Thursday. I have a lot to talk about. Week 13 reaction, Week 14 predictions, thoughts on the Buccaneers, Giants game today, earlier, like 8 hours ago today. Got some thoughts on the Panthers game. We'll do reactions to all that and predictions for some of that. If you didn't read the tweet a little bit earlier, there's not going to be a Thursday show because of Thanksgiving. There's no Tuesday show either. There's not going to be a Friday show. So we're smashing all this into one show just to make sure we get all this out of the way. So yeah, no show on Friday now. This is the only show. Then I'll see you guys again in about a week or so. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll be on active on Twitter, giving my extra reactions to things as it were, as it would be. Sorry, I had a little hiccup, but if you're new here, welcome in to the YouTube stream and to the Spotify, good old Spotify feed. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Spotify. Follow me on Twitter at @4vert_pod. That's all I need you guys to do. Nothing happens. It's mostly free. Spotify to sign up and give your credit card if you want the premium version, but the free version is just good enough. Nothing happens generally. Also, by the way, make sure you like the stream, subscribe to, and leave a comment down below. Same with Spotify too. 5-star review, and that's all I ask. So that's all I ask. And this show is completely free. Nothing happens. I'm not tied to any network, so like NBC or Fox or CBS or ESPN's not knocking on my door and saying, I can't be live at 10:47 in the p.m. on a Sunday, right as Sunday Night Football is going on. Wasn't going to go live during Josh Peak's show. I have too much respect for him. I was in the live chat a little earlier, or not in the live chat, but I was watching the show. By the way, Josh, congrats on your brand new studio. It looks great. Finally, actually seeing an actual studio, just you being in the broom closet's different. But anyway, let's get into the show here. Again, trying to talk a little quieter today in this episode because, again, this is late at night. And if you can't hear, there's a sound machine too going on, so the noise filters out. But anyway, hopefully, if you guys wonder what that noise is, that's what it is, just a sound machine making sure. Again, we're doing okay, but I think we'll be fine. Again, this is rare, a late evening show. By the way, if you go on the channel and the podcast feed, I did a emergency podcast, if you will, for Bryce Underwood, committing from LSU, committing to Michigan. That's on the channel. If you want my actual thoughts on that, that literally happened hours and hours after the Thursday show ended. So how about that? Did emergency podcast. So you'll have your two shows for this week to take a gander at. But we get no show on Friday and no show Thursday, obviously, and then no show Tuesday. Well, let's get into it. Texas A&M Auburn, wildest game of the day. This is a 4-overtime game. If I have it correct, longest game in Jordan Hare history, I believe. The 2021 Iron Bowl would have something to say about that, but I believe that was 2 overtimes, and this is 4. So this is the longest game in Jordan Hare Stadium history. Fantastic game. Auburn at one point was up 21-0, and to me and most of you in the general public probably thought, oh, Auburn has this thing, wrapped up. They finally got a huge one for Hugh Freeze, and then Texas A&M and Mike Elko creep back in the game. It looked like, oh, Auburn not like this. They're gonna once again lose another close game, and Payne Thorne throws an interception, they have a fumble to you, and it's like this whole thing's unraveling in front of us on national TV. Then they just, with barely much time on the clock, get a field goal off, and a brand new kicker now because the other two guys were not performing. Well, one guy's injured. Everyone, backup kicker, just I don't get mad at kids. I don't, go after them, but he was kind of garbage. So they brought in a walk-on kicker from Birmingham Southern of all places. Kicks the field goal, forces it into overtime. They both score touchdowns, and they do the 2-point conversion thing. Then they go into the weird part of overtime, which ranch shoots a lot better than the NFL, the version you get in earlier season. But boy, the new version or the current version of college football overtime, it sucks. It sucks. The 2-point plays, the which is stupid. It's like they claim they're shortening the game, and then they're actually making the game a lot longer if you don't make them. It's not guaranteed. Anyway, Auburn finds a way. They score one more 2-point conversion than Texas A&M. A&M does a little Philly special there. Yeah, no, the Philly special because it's not in Philadelphia and it's not the Eagles. So I guess it's the Texas A&M special. Marcel Reed gets some like that little reverse play, and he flips it to the running back, I guess, and he drops it. Auburn wins the game. Hats off to Hugh Freeze and Auburn. Huge one. They really, I think, to lower the temperature, if you will, for the Auburn program and the Auburn fan base. This was huge. Very, very important. You can tell because the fans rushed the field. Don't know if I think that was necessary, but look at college football. It's 2024. May as well be labeled as, '07 Part 2, as Josh Pate mentioned earlier. I can see where he's coming from, though. It's not the same gravitas as '07. But there are some similarities with chaos going around and a lot of top teams losing multiple times, and was no clear lead team, maybe with a few exceptions. But for Oregon, Hugh Freeze, huge win. Cam Coleman had the best game of his career. He had 3 touchdowns, I believe. Payne Thorne, yes, he had the interception. It didn't matter. He was part of the reason why they won the game. I know this doesn't sound good for Auburn because, look, they need one more win to get bowl eligible. So assume that Iron Bowl comes Saturday will be important. I'll talk about that game later. Next year is what next year is going to be. Payne Thorne will be long gone. They'll have to go in the portal for a transfer quarterback. Hopefully, they can keep around some of these guys. Some of the freshmen they brought in the last couple of years, they can keep them around, develop them. Seems like at the moment, they're in. They're all in. Not really all in, but all into the program. But Hugh Freeze and them, again, they really needed that. I know it's a cliche to say that, but in terms of the temperature of the fan base, it sort of cooled down. So I think Benadryl for or like ibuprofen for a fever, same thing, cools it down a little bit. Everything's calm for now, but then again, you have the game Saturday in Tuscaloosa. Iron Bowl, pretty toxic. First time since I believe, if it's correct, I know Jim Dunaway and the guys on Next Run Live did a little live stream yesterday, and I think Dunaway brought up that this is the first Iron Bowl. And when he said '07, that has no major consequences now. Granted, that's Nick Saban's first year. Tommy Turbo, his second to last year. I think that's probably accurate. First time since 2007 that there's no real championship aspirations on that, which is kind of weird. So, what's up with that, right? The Iron Bowl for the first time in 17 years, ironically being '07, has no meaning at all. Well, at least national meaning. Now, of course, the rivalry, it means a lot, right? Talk about it later. But for Auburn again, golf clap for Hugh Freeze and the Tigers finally winning a close game, as I mentioned on Twitter last night. And it seemed like for a little bit that, Auburn's unhealthy obsession of losing close games to rear its ugly head. But, it didn't. And they survive. A&M, not much to really say. You just lost. Good effort. You came back down 21-0. I will discuss the Texas game here in a few minutes. I'm going to speed through some of these. Literally, I'm trying to keep the show not for going 2 hours, and we're literally going to be live up until early tomorrow morning. So to avoid all that, done before midnight, we're going to speed through some of these. So Auburn, Texas A&M, exciting game. With or without the style of the overtime rules, exciting game. Probably the best game of the week, best game of the weekend, both in college and NFL. I think very, very entertaining and very exciting if you're a Auburn fan. You Freeze finally imagine this too. This is Auburn's first win, by the way, over a ranked team since Brian Harsin and Auburn and Bo Nix were at Auburn, beat Ole Miss in 2021. So that tells you how long ago that was. So that was like a whole different administration over there. So hats off to Auburn, Texas A&M. I'll talk about them later. Again, we're combining like two shows into one here, so it's kind of redundant to talk about most of these teams twice. Most of these same teams like kind of twice, but it is what it is. So the stuff I said about Auburn will likely be repeated. So just keep that in mind as you go through here. Oklahoma defeated. Let me start over on that. Oklahoma defeated Alabama yesterday, 24-3. I have a lot to say about this. Obviously, it's the most jarring loss in my lifetime that I've seen Alabama take. Um, very jarring. I don't know, man. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Kalen Moore, a lot of respect for that program he's built, or program he built in Washington, his entire career in general. I have a lot of respect for this team. I have a lot of respect for Jalen Milroe. I don't know what happened yesterday. I just don't. I mean, it's sort of like Bama took 2 steps forward when they went into Tiger Stadium 2 weeks ago and just completely dismantled LSU, and then they took 3 steps backwards yesterday. Again, I don't know why. Hats off to Burt Venables in Oklahoma. They did a good game plan to handle Jalen Milroe. They didn't let him rush the ball much. I think he had like a grand total of 30 yards, 2 interceptions. Everyone's gonna be talking about the phantom penalty on the Ryan Williams touchdown. They got called back. Look, Josh P did a whole segment on the whole officiating the SEC and just the country in general. So I'm not going to sit here and like repeat what he said, but just I don't know. Man, but that's the only way I can describe them right now is I don't know. They play Auburn this Saturday. I'll talk more about that game here in a minute. Just jarring. That's the only way I can really describe it. Very jarring. Oklahoma, eligible, man. You know, Brett Venables pretty scary for a little bit. Didn't think you were gonna make it to a bowl game. Now he was fun either way because he got that big contract extension back in the summer. So there was a coach in there, and I mentioned this back then. It was the Oklahoma administration saying, "Look, the season's gonna be rough. Probably it's a transitional year. You know that we trust Brent Venables to help us navigate through this, regardless of what we go through in year one. What happens years afterwards is going to be the difference." So this is granted. I know a lot of people will call it a career defining win for Brent Venables and a program building win. I know some people will push back at that just because you beat Bama without Nick Saban. I still think it's important. It's that brand, that Bama logo means a lot. Just because Kevin DeBoer is the coach here doesn't mean it's a huge win. I don't care. It's a huge win. And for that program and OU and how much they've been struggling, if you think about this too, like they own the state of Alabama. Like as much as Vanderbilt owns the state of Alabama, Oklahoma owns it too. They're 2-0. Get combined. Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, 4-0 versus teams from the state of Alabama. Imagine telling yourself that back in April and like June or July. Heck, I would have not believed you if you were to tell me, hey, I'm from the future. Alabama and Auburn are going to go combined 0-4 versus Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Like that to me isn't the literal definition of insanity, but that's just an example of how crazy this year is, man. The state of Alabama, 0-2 versus Vanderbilt and University of Oklahoma. Like that's insane. So hats off to OU, hats off to the Venables, and for killing the board in Bama. I mean, most of their meaningful postseason goals are probably gone now, more than likely, and at Barnwell this Saturday. So I will let you guys know my thoughts on here in a moment, or not in a moment, but in a little bit, about how I feel about that team, and that team going into this game, and what I think we will see. Again, excuse me, I'm not sick of anything, but keeping the noise down here again. It's now 11 o'clock here in the evening here in northeastern Florida, so got to make sure we don't get in trouble here. But hopefully, you guys can hear me. I have a decent enough microphone. If you hear the background noise, it's just a sound machine. It's not a big deal. It's just keeping the excess noise out of this room here, so we're not bothering anyone. But if you are here live and there's none of you on here, well, technically there's one is watching, but hello if you're watching, or hello if you're watching on the replay, and hello if you're on on the Spotify replay. I'm gonna check real quick here just to see if the audio is working, just to double check, as I probably should have done it a little earlier, but anyway, we're in the actual show now, so I may as well better late than never, right? So what I'm going to do is go to the YouTube page and turn up the volume. Double check. Okay, you guys can hear me. That's good. Um, there's been times before, if you know, you know, but there were times before we were doing the live stream and the microphone wasn't working. So, you know, thankfully it is. We're taking a little break here. In fact, as we're doing this, I'm gonna get some water real quick. Again, your feed's not going out. Just getting some water real quick because it's gonna be probably gonna be a long show. Normally we don't do this mid segment, but it's not gonna be an individual video. But we'll split it up a little bit here. We got four more games to talk about. We'll kind of rapid fire through those two. So making sure the voice survives here. So that's it for Bama and Oklahoma. We'll talk about Bama Auburn here in a minute. Ole Miss lost to Florida. That happened. It did. I tried to warn you guys, and so did Josh Pate. We were trying to be ahead of it. They were trying to be ahead of it. I was concerned. I'm very concerned. You know, the CFP Nerds model had Ole Miss minus 41 or something like that, like something crazy. And look, no offense to those guys over there at that site and the YouTube channel, but man, Florida. I'm telling you guys, us Pate, that Florida is a top 25 caliber team, particularly in the power ratings world. And yeah, I know you folks cringe at that, the whole properly rated thing. But for those of you who don't live in that world, whatever. If you do live in that world, it makes sense to us. But Florida Napier, like I said last week, golf clap. Like this is a big deal for them, and they're 6-5 right now. They have a bye week next week. Just kidding. It's Florida State. No, may as well be a bye week. So you'll go 7-5 there more than likely, and then a bowl game, and you win that 8-5. Like think about telling yourself that, and like September, August, that million here in Florida. We're not going to beat LSU, but we're going to be competitive with Georgia, competitive with Tennessee, and beat Ole Miss. As Ole Miss was a team that people thought were in takeoff mode. I certainly did. Unfortunately, we were wrong on that. And here they are. Florida and Billy Napier, 6-5. Win next week more than likely. 7-5. Bowl win 8-5. Incredible. Just incredible turnaround. And again, like I mentioned last week and throughout the whole past couple of shows, with DJ Lagway seemingly returning and Billy Napier being back, you would imagine they will build to next year. That next year could be a year where they could springboard a little bit and potentially have, maybe a season like Miami's having this year. Have a breakout year and they go all in the portal. We'll see about that, but that's like a couple months from now. But this is incredible. Again, just imagine telling yourself, back in like September, August about, hey, I'm from 4 months in the future and Billy Napier is gonna, be competitive against Tennessee and Georgia and he's gonna have wins over LSU and Ole Miss. And you would have been like, there's no way that's true. And here we are, Florida 6-5 bowl eligible, win next week 7-5, and then 8 wins potentially. Again, the reason why I'm repeating that is it just sounds insane. Right? Imagine telling yourself that back in the spring. Like, incredible. Just incredible. Plus, DJ Lagway, again, tells you, especially these past couple weeks, how valuable he is and how much of a mirage that Texas game was. Because, again, you were starting the walk-on kid. So, tells you all you need to know and tells you also what the power ratings were telling you. Because when DJ Lagway was healthy, Florida in the power rating world was a top 25 team in a list of look for 25. Without him, they are not. So as long as he stays healthy, as long as he stays at Florida and they can build around him, maybe they can allocate those funds to like NIL and the portal and getting some better players. And they could be a pretty solid team next year. They could be a team that's on the rise a little bit. And, you know, who knows what they can do next year and how much of this could be a springboard. As for Ole Miss, as I mentioned on Twitter, I'm going to keep this brief, but I'm sure I don't know what else to really say here. This is pretty disappointing. If I were a Ole Miss fan in like Tupelo, Mississippi, or in like South Memphis, or I don't know if that's even a town, but like the southern part of Memphis that's in you know Mississippi, I'll be pissed off. I surely would. I know those donors are. I know those coaches are. I know those players are. This was an all-in year. This was a year that they spent so much in the portal. That's why they got guys like Walter Nolan. That's why they were able to keep those receivers around. That's why they were able to keep Jackson Dart around. That's part of the reason why Lane Kiffin chose to not take the Auburn job a couple years ago, because I think he knew if he continued to build to this year, they would have had an opportunity, all things considered, to compete for a playoff spot. And now here they are. They've basically did all that for nothing. This is probably, or this was, the best chance for us in our lifetime to see Ole Miss be a playoff team, because I doubt they will have a team similar to this next year and years to come. Again, they literally spent all that money to, go try and win a championship. And here they are, guys like Walter Nolan are, who were brought in, former five-star kid from A&M, just gone. Like automatically, it's basically just evaporated in one Saturday afternoon in Gainesville, Florida. There's still a lot of pride for them to play for. I mean, they have the Egg Bowl this week. I'm not too concerned. I think they will handle business there, but it sucks. I know it sucks. I know those folks are pissed off too. Again, this was it. This was the best team for talent, opportunity since the JFK administration. To compete for a championship, and it's not going to happen. And it makes you wonder. Certainly makes me wonder too. What's Lane Kiffin's future there? Like I've been telling you guys, and I'll say it again after I mentioned this after the LSU game. I think you will begin to hear more about Lane Kiffin to the NFL. And it's going to happen. I think you will, as more and more jobs open up there in the pro league, you will start to hear Lane Kiffin's name being brought up. I know folks cringe at that. I know folks don't believe that. I'm just telling you, you're going to hear it. You're going to get even louder. Despite the fact that now that their postseason goals are mostly gone now, I think you will start to hear him being considered for those jobs, or at least being mentioned on those short lists. Does he go to the NFL? Personally, I think that's always been his goal to get back, but I don't know. I just firmly believe you will hear his name being mentioned. Again, no folks cringe at that. No folks personally, or at least close to me, have mentioned to me, well, he's immature, or he's this and that. Well, I'm telling you, I think that's his. I personally, I think he's changed. I think he's definitely a way better coach than he was 20 plus years ago. So what? People can't change, and people can't find more opportunity. Like Chip Kelly, I think Chip Kelly's going to get eventually trying to get back in the NFL. So same with Lane Kiffin. I think you're going to hear his name being brought up for a lot of these current jobs that are open in the NFL and future ones that could come open. And I'll just leave it at that. So I have no insider knowledge either on that. That's just me personally believing you will hear his name being brought up. May not be the league candidate. You may not be someone that you take seriously, but I firmly believe his name will be mentioned in those good old NFL hot boards. It'll be on there. Some of it will be surprised about it, but you shouldn't. His name will be mentioned. Indiana got disposed of by Ohio State, as predicted on this show and many others. Not much to say. Ohio State did what I thought they were going to do: flex their muscles. Indiana, Kirk Stig, I think he's a good coach, a good story. They're a good team, but as much as I can explain it to you guys in blue in the face, ditto with Pate. Indiana's a good team. Their strength of schedule was just weak. Again, it's not even their fault. Like they did what they're supposed to do. They're destroying these, G5 teams and some of these lower teams in Big Ten. But that's what you're supposed to do, right? And they have Indiana. Most, in most cases, would have been out of the playoff, right? Because of the low strength of schedule, and these other SEC teams, if they would have won this weekend, would have prevented them from being in, I think. But that's gone now because of those teams lost. So we're entering a world here with were to get by Purdue, which I think they will, more than likely, Indiana's probably in the playoff as a one-loss team, and it didn't look like that necessarily a week ago. So that just tells you how much has changed in the last 6 days or so. Again, Ohio State flexed their muscles. They go to Michigan week. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. They were supposed to do flex their muscles as a 13.5 point favorite, if I recall, and they look good. I know it started a little shaky early. Indiana took the lead. There was a lot of issues, like for example, some PI stuff. The pass defense wasn't necessarily clean. Kudos to Jim Knowles and that staff here for doing a complete 180 in the second quarter onward. It was just completely different. Like you're watching two different games, literally. And hats off to him. Hats off to Indiana. They represented themselves somewhat well. Yes, the game kind of got away from them, but this is going to be interesting to see what the playoff committee does with them. I know what they will do, and they will say Indiana is still a team that we will consider for the playoff. And come Selection Sunday in about 14 days, so I fully expect them if they can win next week and everything kind of stays a course here, but it's not a guarantee. They will probably be in. It looked like that. Um, again, 6 days ago, but here we are. They're, Ole Miss losing and Texas A&M. Well, I mean not that, but especially Ole Miss losing, I think changes a lot. Also, Bama. So, man, Indiana getting a good story. They didn't necessarily get splattered all over the place against Ohio State yesterday, but it could have been a lot worse. Penn State, Minnesota, not surprised here. Close game. Hats off to PJ Fleck and company. It's a tough team, tough mentality, hard place to play at. Penn State found a way to win. Much like the USC game, found a way to win. Doesn't look good, yes, against an unranked team, but so is not a bad team. Nor is Penn State. Penn State's not an elite team. They're a good team. I can sit here and talk about James Franklin being properly rated. I know a lot of folks don't like Drew Allen. A lot of people cringe at him. A lot of people think he's an idiot or he's stupid or he can't do this, can't do that, he can't go in the league. Who cares? He's playing well now. He actually had a good day yesterday. No one will bring that up. Like he was like, what, 22 of 28 or whatever for like 245 and 3 touchdowns. Like, what do you want him to do? Like, go for 5,000 yards in a game and break the single record for an NCAA football game? Like, unless you want him to do that, unless you want him to be like Patrick Mahomes was in college, like I don't know what you want him to do. Like he's just Drew Aller. I know a lot of NFL scouts that Josh Picks talked to mentioned him as a still high caliber quarterback. That was several months ago, so I don't know how much has changed since then. But I think Peyton also a lot of other folks in the industry feel the exact same way. That Drew Aller is going to be a probably decent enough pro prospect. I don't care about that. Internally, but I still think he's a good quarterback. Like yesterday's result, close game didn't change my mind on that. Penn State's still a good team. Win the next week, they'll secure themselves in the playoff, more likely. That's that. They just survive and advance this. I know it's cliche to say that, but especially now with the way the playoff's structured and how much it is reflecting the NFL world. At this point in the season, it's more just survive and advance. Doesn't matter how bad it looks, especially if you're playing against teams that circle you as their Super Bowl or their big game. You better pray and hope that you survive. Like Penn State, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, like I mentioned last week, were teams that were not used to the November pressure. It's a real thing. It's a real thing, especially if you haven't been there before. If you're a program that has historically not been performing well in November or never even gone to the position of being, I'm trying to say here, I guess in a situation where you find yourself, competing for the playoff. It's a very rare thing. Not a lot of teams can say they've done it. And as if you're a new team, like BYU's figured it out or found out. Texas A&M found out, kind of. Ole Miss found out about it. I mean, it's hard. And Penn State found a way to survive it. And one next week, one lost team, much like Indiana, we're probably in the playoff. Well, I guess Indiana's a little different, but still, it's the trend world we live in. And Penn State, again, survive in advance. I think they play Michigan State, I believe, next week, if I recall correctly. Actually, no, I think it's Maryland, actually, not Michigan State. They played them last year. So, yeah, hats off to them. Hats off to Penn State. That's a tough spot there. I was concerned about that game. I had it on the upset alert section. Not much to say. It's what I thought we were gonna get. Last game yesterday, BYU Arizona State. Also a fun game too. This was similar to actually in a lot of ways to that Auburn Texas A&M game where Arizona State had like a 14-point lead or 20-point lead or something like that. BYU comes all the way back. Fun game. There was two rushing the field moments. The first one got because of there was technically 2 seconds left. Got moved around and then the fans rushed back. It's a fun game. Hats off to Kenny Dillingham. Again, he was his entry in. Everyone talks about how bad Arizona State was under Herm Edwards, and I agree, it was a mess. I just if you haven't done research on it, do so if you don't know what I'm talking about because it was bad. Most of it was mostly about the COVID stuff, but even that, like recruiting stuff, and just organization, like it was apparently pretty bad. So Kenny Dillingham comes in, has to essentially, and this is again it's a very weird situation because again with the whole sanctions and stuff, it's much like kind of what Bill O'Brien walked into at Penn State. Granted, the sanctions were not as serious as those were, as much respect as I think after that situation. It is kind of similar, right? You have the scholarship stuff, you have the full ban, and Kenny Dillingham, in the words of, you know, uh, now I'm actually going to use that quote, but essentially walked into a, sort of, kitchen nightmares is thing, kind of like Gordon Ramsay a year ago. That was the example I was thinking of. Gordon Ramsay kitchen nightmares went into a complete total mess and had to rework the whole thing. And here they are now, 9-2, and potentially on their way to Dallas for the Big 12 championship game. Who would have thought that, right? Former team from the Pac-12 was favored to win the conference. It wasn't Arizona State. It was Utah. Utah may not even be going to a bowl game. So, how about that? Arizona State. Not the team you thought would be going to the Big 12 championship game as one of the newcomers, but they are. Here they are, Kenny Dillingham, and saying hello to the college football world that he is for real. And I think you will. I think I'm wrapping up the segment here. I mean, the BYU side, it's like is what it is. It's tough, like I mentioned about with like Ole Miss and Penn State and some of the other teams that lost in the past few weeks. It's tough, especially not been there before. And BYU and Kalani Sitake, at least in consideration, I know the Zach Wilson year in 2020 sort of counts as that would have been a potential playoff team, but this is different. They're in a conference. It's a whole different ball game. Being a P4 team or in the Big 12 as a playoff contender versus being a G5 team. This is different. And again, for shout out to Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham. Just incredible job there. I mean, he literally walked into a total disaster and he's made something out of it. And I don't think he's the last coach you will see take that same path. Will Stein, by the way, at Oregon, offensive coordinator there, who took over for Dillingham after he left for this Arizona State job, which is his alma mater, by the way, too. Right? That's where he went to school. Will Stein can definitely follow his footsteps, and I think you will see him potentially being in play for a lot of these jobs, especially the ones that are open right now, the G5 level, but especially any P4 jobs that open up, or I guess jobs in the major conferences. So that is it for the reaction, if you will, for Week 13. Week 14 predictions are coming up. I'm gonna get some more water here. How long are we going for here? 3 minutes, not too bad. A little bit slower than I thought we were. Excuse me, thought we were going to be going, but that's okay. We can manage. Some quick water real quick. We still have a lot more to go here. We still have upset alerts, predictions for this coming up week, and reaction to the Buccaneers, and a quick prediction. So again, real quick, some water here, and we'll be right back. And apologies if I sound like I'm being a little more quieter than usual, but again, it's 11:20 as I'm recording this, and as we're live right now, at least on the East Coast, 10 or 10:20 Central Time. But again, it's don't want to wake people up, don't want to get in trouble. So in lieu of that, we're keeping us at a modest level. So hopefully you guys can hear me. It sounded fine on the computer as I was listening to myself. Make sure audio is fine. So for me. Getting into rivalry week predictions here. A lot of heavy hitters, and this one is a massive heavy hitter. Texas A&M, Texas. It's finally back. Finally back. 7:30. Game day will be there. Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit will be there. Herbstreit will not be there, unfortunately. R.I.P. Still. Um, just can't believe Ben's gone. And not to mention, too, that was his last public appearance too, with like Kyle Field. And ironically, I believe Peter will be joining Kirk. And by the way, Kirk's got a busy week too. He has the Black Friday game, like Chiefs Raiders, I believe, on Amazon. He has to fly to College Station, and luckily that game's I believe in the afternoon too. So luckily for him, it's an afternoon game, but still, I mean, oh, it's a tough, tough end of the week there. But at least he'll have a decent game on Saturday night, I'd imagine. College Station, third time being back there again. Peter will be with him, carrying on Ben's legacy. But let's actually dive into the game here, as we should. The rivalry's back. First time since 2011 this game being played. Ironically, I believe that was in Kyle Field too, so it's back at the scene of the crime. I think a lot of folks don't believe this rivalry. A lot of folks don't believe it, especially younger folks like me a little bit. I'm someone who recently graduated college, so I don't necessarily remember that rivalry because I was a young youth back then. Well, that's what a young person is, a youth. So I don't remember that rivalry too much. But having looked into it, the history, and now there's some, that sort of in a way, it's like the Cold War was with the U.S. and the Soviet Union. It's like they never actually fought each other, but there's a lot of anger towards each other, a lot of hate being spewed at each other. Granted, it's a little bit different in geopolitics versus football, but kind of the same thing. For a while, Texas A&M, Texas was a Cold War. Not anymore. It's a hot war, and it's going down Saturday night. Key to me comes down to the quarterbacks. Marshall Reed versus Quinn Ewers. Now they're not playing each other literally. It's like this is not a UFC fight, but it's going to come down to both of them. Which quarterback can make the big play in a game that I figure will be tight, low scoring game probably. I don't think this will be a high scoring game. I don't think it will be. So like probably in the 20s. Probably haven't really FanDuel that much. I just quickly glanced at it today, but that's what I think is going to come down to. At least offensively, mostly. But I also think it's going to come down to those defensive lines for either team. And all these close games, it usually does. But I think in situations like this, especially in rivalry games, where it figures this will be a close game, and not to mention both teams have, extra implications because winner of this game goes to Atlanta to face who? Georgia. Yeah, Georgia's in the SEC championship game. I think a lot of folks forgot that. Or didn't realize that, but yeah, State clinched it, and there they are. They're just waiting. Yeah, it feels like we're, witnessing the SEC East and West over again because Georgia would always clinch it by now, but it's not. So ironically, they just have to be the team that's waiting for Texas and Texas A&M. But to me, it comes down to quarterbacks for me. This is a quarterback matchup. Marcel Reed and Texas A&M. How can they respond? Because they had the Auburn game yesterday. It was rough, right? Down 21-0. Yes, you came back and you showed some resiliency. You lost the game. And that can be soul crushing. There's an avenue here where Texas can march into College Station and literally grab the soul from their body and win this game by 14 plus. That could be on the table. If A&M is mentally checked out, I don't think they're going to because again, it's the rivalry's back and it's at Kyle Field. But there's an avenue for that. There's certainly a multiverse of solutions. That's one of the possibilities. I'm not trying to sound like Dr. Strange here with the time stone, and I can go forward in time, but that's a possibility. Certainly, if A&M can get off the deck, I think they will because it's at home. And I think Marcel Reed, he's a young player, and I think young players a lot of times when especially with a coach like Mike Elka, who is relatively new, at least new as a head coach, and he's been around for a while. With a young quarterback and a head coach who in his year one, there's a lot of growing pains, and he saw that against South Carolina. He saw it against Notre Dame early in the year. He saw it against Auburn yesterday. That's tough. It's not easy, but they still have all their goals in front of them. It's not over. It's not over, as they say. They still have all of their postseason aspirations in front of them against a rivalry game at home. I just think there's the crowd there. That's what I'm really excited to see. Just how it's hard to explain, but it's sort of like what A&M faced this weekend at Auburn, but times 100 because Kyle Fields is obviously bigger than Jordan here in Stadium. It's 87,000 versus 100,000 fans and students. I just believe the atmosphere is going to be incredible, and it should be incredible because again, that rivalry's back. I mean, this is two of the best coaching staffs in the SEC with Sark and Mike Elko, and two, sort of the yin and the yang here with Sark being an opposite-minded coach, and Mike Elko being defensive-minded. Um, I guess it's another matchup there. The chess moves that everybody made. Interested to see what happens there. As we kind of move along, again, I can talk a whole lot about this Texas A&M Texas game. I mean, so many avenues you can go around, right? Talked about the quarterbacks. Can Quinn Ewers know who he is? Can he step up though in big moments? That happened versus Georgia. Can he do it in this game? That's what I'm looking for. At least one of them. The other avenue, getting defensive line versus offensive line for both sides, and the coaching matchup. The CFP Nerds model, who we use, has Texas A&M favored by 13.6, which is a lot higher than the FanDuel number. By the way, I don't advocate you guys to bet or anything. I'm just using FanDuel as a prediction preview purposes here. They have the number as 5.5. Because it's at home, because Texas A&M's and sort of their pride is on the line here. It's a rivalry game. You're going to be amped up. The city's gonna be ecstatic. Their College Station, the area is gonna be electric. The tailgating city, I can imagine it being electric. The crowd would be amazing. Toughest crowd I believe Texas would have been to all year, and probably even the biggest or the most, probably the most difficult crowd that Sark has dealt with in his entire tenure. Again, that's including Texas going to Baylor last year. I think this will be a little more difficult, clearly, because it's a rivalry game and there's a lot more urgency on the line here too, because it's whenever this game goes to Atlanta to face Texas to face Georgia, and a auto bids on the line, if you will, auto bids. But I saw that to say, I think Texas A&M wins the game outright. I have no feel on which way they cover or not, but I think Texas A&M wins the game outright. Somehow, some way, I think they figure out the win. It's an instant classic. I can just already see in my mind. Though again, there is the avenue of Texas ripping the soul out of them. Has this Auburn game infected them being Texas A&M? Has it infected them too much to where they've checked out mentally? I don't think so. I don't think that's the case, but it's a possibility. And if you're A&M, or either team, really, if you're A&M or Texas, jump on them early. If you're Texas, silence the crowd. Score early if you get the ball first. I know that's easy to say that, but it's really hard, especially again with the crowd and the environment I'm expecting at Kyle Field Saturday. If you're Texas A&M, get stops early. Get that crowd behind you. Get amped up anyway, but make sure it's evident, or make sure it's obvious that this is going to be a hellish night for them. So yeah, I think A&M is going to win the game outright. I have no feel, and which way I lean on that, but I think A&M will win the game. Man, this is depressing. So Ohio State plays Michigan this weekend. I'm pretty sure no one really cares about that game, except if you live in Owasso, Michigan, or Cleveland, Ohio. There's not much to talk about here. Similar to the Indiana Ohio State game last week, this is a game point blank that Ohio State can flex their muscles in. I know that sounds morbid, given how we felt about this rivalry for the past 3 years, because Michigan has won it 3 times in a row. Just to get out of the way, I think that it's going to come to an end. It's important, I think. I mean, it's obvious. I think the game, I think they cover. The CFP Nerds model is right in line with the FanDuel number, which is 20.5. The CFP Nerds model has it at 23.1. Totally agree with. I think Ohio State wins and covers. So that's kind of easy to say, right? I mean, it's why. Well, you'll be asking me, well, Josh, why is that the case? It's 3 years of anger being built up, and I think a lot of folks used this with Ohio State a couple years ago when it was, the second time that Michigan had beaten Ohio State in Ryan Day. A lot of folks, some folks who I respect, thought the revenge factor was going to be a key, and it wasn't. I think that's in play here. In all seriousness, I think it is in play. It's 3 years of anger being built up. It's an Ohio State team similar to Ole Miss, but grant you Texas A&M or, well, I guess, yeah, Texas A why'd I bring up Texas A&M for? I really just talked about that. I guess it's the consequence of doing a show at 11:30 at night. But Ohio State's not Ole Miss. They recruit a lot better. They have a lot more tools at their disposal. This is a revenge game, and I think they know that. It's been 3 years of anger being pent up. They have pushed all the chips in for this year to win a national championship. They have talent all over the place, including the quarterback and running backs and receivers. Michigan, yes, golf clap for Jerome Martin, them to get Bryce Underwood. They won big against Northwestern. Great. I got water from my fridge today. This is a different test for them. And in the words of George Bush, I think Ohio State's going to pass this test. They didn't pass the past 3 years. I don't foresee this being a fourth straight year. If there is such a path for Michigan to win this game, which I don't believe there's an obvious path, but there is a path, and it's a very simple one. It's called game control, and being physical. Michigan can certainly do that. They have, I guess, the offensive setup to do that. To do so, they have decent enough running backs of Edwards, who's been limited. I don't know what to think of him. They also have good enough defense, but I think the offense, the way it was set up, over the spring and summer with the intention of Alex Orji being the starter, then turns out he wasn't, but now he kind of is now because Davis Thorne's on bench and Jack Total has retired from football. They're going to have to, if they want to be competitive in this game or at least just cover, they have to control the game, control the clock, possess the ball, go on lofts and long sustaining drives, and even it means, ending in a punt or a field goal or, hey, maybe even a touchdown. Gotta shorten the game and make Ohio State have to feel urgency to score every time they get the ball. Because if you shorten the game, again, it sounds very like elementary, but we've seen it happen before. It's called the Michigan-Ohio State game in 2023 and 2022 and 2021. It's happened before, and they can totally do it again. A lot of these coaches were, well, I mean, not all of them, but I guess Jerome Moore was there for it, right? Like Edwards was there last year and the last couple of years. So they know the formula to do it. It's a lot harder when you have a brand new staff and a first-time, full-time head coach and a quarterback that is limited and can really only run the football. So if that doesn't happen, Ohio State's going to flex their muscles here, and it's going to be – how do I say this without sounding like I'm being disrespectful to the Michigan program? Because, again, I know it's when you've been feeling great, got the recruitment, you won yesterday, getting golf clap for Jerome Moore and them. This has the feel of like when Ohio State used to beat Michigan regularly, whether it was back in the late 2010s or under the Brady Hoke years or whatnot. Has that feel to it. I just don't think this will be a very competitive game. I hope I'm wrong. I know it's a noon game. I know Fox certainly thought it would be a competitive game. Like, it sucks that Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt and Jenny Taft will probably have to win SC in another not very competitive game, more likely. It sucks. Hopefully they get a good game, at least from their perspective. I mean, heck, if I was Joel Klatt, I would be hoping I'd get a good game, but it's not guaranteed. And it looks more likely it won't be a competitive game. But there's a path there for Michigan. It's a very narrow path, and it seems simple, but it's really not that simple, though. It's tough to pull off, especially with a whole new staff there and limitations at quarterback. But like I said, if you control the clock and shorten the game a little bit and make Ohio State panic and them feeling they have to score every time they get the football, there's a way. There is an avenue, a very narrow avenue, but there's a way for Ohio State to win the game. I mean, or for Michigan to win the game. But I don't see it. I think Ohio State's going to win. I think they cover pretty mightily, I think. Could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot this year, so I'm just pointing it out there as a little disclaimer. Real quick here. Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl. It's in Tuscaloosa, a place that Auburn, for some reason, just doesn't want to win at. They haven't won there in 15 years, essentially. This is a strange game to me. Like I mentioned earlier, what Jim Dunaway said yesterday on his live stream of him and Brown last night, I agree with. It's the first Iron Bowl in 17 years that has really no consequence to it. Nationally, now regionally, it's going to mean a lot because it's Auburn, Alabama. It's the biggest in-state rivalry besides Michigan, Ohio State, and Florida, Miami, and all the Florida schools. But I mean, it's sort of more of a. I guess the way I view this rivalry because I used to live in the state, so I've witnessed, fan perspective. I don't know if there's a real player perspective. 'Cause a lot of these kids aren't from the state. Like most of these players, like Payne Thorns from like Illinois or something like that, from like New Jersey or whatever. Um, most of these players are from like Georgia, Florida, like in some cases like the Midwest and the West Coast. Like most of these kids aren't even from the state of Alabama. Now there's some exceptions, like uh, Cam Coleman's from there, Perry Thompson's from there. I believe Bryce Kane's from there. Actually, no, I don't think he is, but there's some players that are from there and they know each other from playing each other in high school, but it's a very small mixture. It's mostly most of these rosters are made up of kids from like Georgia, as I mentioned, the Midwest in some cases, and Florida mostly. So it's not a players rivalry like it is with like Florida, Florida State, Florida, Miami, and you know, Florida State, Miami. Unlike Iowa State, Michigan, it's more of a fan rivalry, which is fine to me. I enjoy it as a outsider, even though I lived in the state. I didn't really have much of an angle on it. Like I didn't go to Auburn. I didn't go to Alabama. Like I didn't go to UAB. Um, School I went to was not in the state of Alabama, at least for college. But as an outsider looking at the rivalry, being in the state and witnessing it, it's intense from the fan side, but from the player side, not so much. I mean, mostly, but how I do this game on the field. That's the fan perspective. Um, Now again, that's not me dissing the rivalry at all. I mean, again, I respect it from the fan standpoint. It's the best fan rivalry in the sport. Not so much player-wise, but fan side, it's up there with some of the best ones. Um, for Bama, it's a Jekyll and Hyde situation. Which Bama team shows up Saturday? Is it the Bama team that disposed of LSU and Missouri, or is it the Bama team that lost yesterday and kept it close against South Carolina and lost to Vanderbilt and had the second half of the Georgia game? Which Bama's going to show up? I don't know. That's a mystery. Again, it's Jekyll and Hyde. I really have no angle here. I expect that the crowd should be pretty decent, though. Again, with Bama being in somewhat uncharted territory, given at least in modern times, again, first time in 17 years they have not had an Iron Bowl that had no real national consequences. So I'm thinking, like from the fan perspective, I think they'll be sold on it. But it makes me wonder, makes me worried where the mindset of the Bama team is. And count on the board. Look, I have a lot of respect for him. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of respect for him and the program he had at Washington and what he's done beforehand. But this is a new test for him. Can he pass this test? Losing this game from a regional perspective, like the fan perspective, he loses this game. It's going to put a lot of pressure on him. Not him getting fired, from that clear, but a lot of competitive pressure. It's certainly not going to. He's going to hear a lot about it because if that happens, man, like Bama being aimed for is not something anyone in our, at least of like my age and younger, has ever mentioned. Like some people would jokingly say, "Oh yeah, Bama's worst case scenario is like 8-4, 7-5," but it's actually a real possibility here. Like they could lose this game as much as Auburn can get blown out in this game. And Bama, by the way, according to FanDuel, again, not a sponsor here, but hopefully someday they might, is a 11.5 point favorite. I believe this is 14.5, so the numbers calm down considerably. This could have been, and heck, if Auburn, kept on losing it, imagine what this number would have been. A lot higher, right? Given, again, Auburn's history there, and they have not performed well there, at least historically. Again, the last time they had a competitive game there, I think was 2014, wasn't it not? So that 10 years ago, which ironically is the last time that game was on ESPN. So how about that? Do we get something like that? Do we get like a 55-44 type game? I don't think so. I don't believe we will. I actually haven't checked. I don't think they have announced yet who the announcers are going to be. I don't know why this is important, but curious here. The last time this game was on ESPN, it was, I believe, Jesse Palmer who called the game of Musburger. I believe. Let me see if they've announced. They have not. So we don't know. I'm assuming it'll be that crew, but it could also be Sean McDonald, Greg McElroy, and Martin McGrath. But who knows? Anyway, regardless of who's announcing the game, it doesn't matter. This is a very much still a very strange game to me. Again, Bama can win this game close. Bama can win the game in the blowout, or Auburn can pull off the upset. Um, Now, for Auburn to pull this off, from the Auburn perspective, now from the Bama perspective, again, if the Bama team that shows up against South Carolina and against Vanderbilt in the second half of the Georgia game and last week, then that's sort of half of the recipe for Auburn to win this game. And the second half is Cam Coleman just going off and him showing why he was up there with the likes of Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. And I don't know what it is, but now he's finally showing why he was up there with those guys. And took him a little bit, but he's getting there. Grant, he's not going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for Auburn. They haven't had one, by the way, which is mind-blowing, by the way, since like the 80s, which is insane. But here we are. The other half of this, too, is Payne Thorne. I mean, he played okay yesterday. He's played well for the most part. Limited the 2 turnovers in the past a couple games. Can that continue? Can he continue to do that? Can he be the reason why Auburn wins this game? Because he sort of was last year. Kind of. Played well. Until, it wasn't until 4th and 31 happened. That wasn't necessarily his fault, but I just wonder, can he do it? Because we saw what Lenora Sowers did, and we saw what Jackson Arnold did yesterday, and what Carson Beck was able to do, and what Diego Pavia was able to do. Can Payne Thorne do that? I don't know. I don't know. It's going to take a lot more effort than it did yesterday. I'll tell you that. It's going to be really tough. Again, this is a building that, besides Auburn's too long as losing streaks on the road, for their rivals, at least currently, is LSU. Well, used to be. Well, all 3 of them are pretty long duration ones, but the LSU one was broken. The LSU one was broken years ago, so now it's. I think the longest one now is actually Georgia, and then Bama. Those are the 2 longest losing streaks Auburn has in any venue in the SEC. Both the legacy and the new ones. So, can they do it? Can they end the 15-year streak? I don't think so. Which is why, again, if you go look at the Vandu number again, it's 11.5. CFP Nerds, by the way, has it as 12.6 in favor of Alabama. I think Bama wins the game, but with the uncertainty, and again, this whole Jekyll and Hyde thing with Bama, and look, Bama could win the game in a blowout. They could win the close game. Auburn could win the game outright. I'm going to take Bama to win the game, but I think Auburn covers. So I do believe it'll be a competitive game, as per usual. It seems like from Bama. But, man, if Auburn were to win this game, yes, it would be toxic for Bama. Yes, it would be a big story. Yes, it would be a very historic event. Again, they really lose to Auburn in that building, at least as of the last 20 years. But for Auburn, man, you get to 6 wins and then potentially a bowl game. Maybe you win it, so 7 wins. Going to next year, like I mentioned earlier, again, we're going to be big players in the portal. So will LSU, so will a lot of teams. But that's a lot of momentum going to next year. I know a lot of folks discount momentum, but momentum's a real thing. It really is. And this could potentially be a big springboard for them. Sort of like Florida this year. Kind of like Florida and Billy Napier, right? We'll see. We'll see. Got some upset alerts in, and we have our NFL section. So the show section was done here. So we're on the home stretch, if you will. We're less than an hour here, about 2 minutes away from hitting an hour, so that's good here. And we're having a good pace here. Upset alerts here. We're going to go breeze through these real quick. UGA, Georgia Tech, have it as a Cody Yellow. Out of respect for Georgia Tech and what they've done this year. Florida State, I don't know if I consider that, but the Miami game, makes you wonder. It's on the road or is at home? It's at home for Georgia. So, look, I still respect that rivalry. I know it's not been very competitive lately, but given Georgia Tech's record, I mean, Brent Key, we've been able to do there, him, in terms of him being an underdog and ranked wins. Just be careful. Just be careful. Again, Georgia has clinched the first slot there in the SEC championship. So they're locked in because their conference play ended a couple weeks ago. So that's not them losing next week won't really impact that, but it will impact the playoff race a little bit. Or will it? Actually, no, I guess not really, because you can win even with their loss and still be in. So it's not really, but it definitely hurts. It will hurt really big for Brent and them. So I have it as Cody Yellow. I'm watching it. I'll be paying attention on Saturday. I'll be, in the words of Chris Hansen to Kimball, if you know, you know. I'll be watching him. I'll be listening him. This next one has me concerned. Vanderbilt, Tennessee. It's on the road, I believe, in Nashville, Colorado. Very concerned here. Tennessee is one of the teams that benefited off of this weekend, along with Indiana. The upper two teams in the SEC losing. Ole Miss. Concern here. A lot of concern. It's on the road. It's Vanderbilt. What would it be? Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia, general manager Bird Martin Simmons, and Clark Lee ruining Tennessee's season. Wouldn't it just be great, right? Ending Thanksgiving weekend with Vanderbilt spoiling Tennessee's party. It would just be fitting, right? Ironically, 2 years ago, it's a similar situation, right? With Tennessee, they lost Ian Hooker, and they're going to a sort of a team and takeoff mode in Vanderbilt. Destroyed them 56-0, I believe. Is that in play here? I don't know. But I'm concerned. Very much so concerned. It's a code red for me. I know people will laugh at that. I know a lot of folks still don't respect Vanderbilt. I do. Even though they didn't necessarily look that well against LSU. But I'm still concerned here. Very, very extremely concerned. I don't care how bad Tennessee could potentially beat them. I don't know. Actually, double check the points right here from FanDuel. It's 10.5. That's actually a little bit higher than I thought it would be, but still, that's a pretty significant number there, or a little bit lower number than I think you would have thought it would be back in like the summer and spring. So that one concern. USC Notre Dame. Great to end this one. Pete brought this up earlier, and I didn't realize it. This game is Notre Dame minus 6.5. It's on the road at USC. 3:30 on CBS. So Brad, Gary, Jenny Dill will be there. Concern here too. Again, for those of you who don't remember or don't realize this, Notre Dame goes dark after this. They don't compete in the ACC anymore. That was like a 1-year thing in 2020. They are done. So they go dark after this weekend, and then they will show up in the first round of the playoff more likely. We'll see. I mean, they dispose of the United States Army. Not all of it, just players who play football. I mean, well, like Notre Dame's declaring war on the United States. No, they're not. That game actually had no geopolitical ramifications. I don't think there was, but anyway, they disposed of them. So they went undefeated versus the United States military. Two branches, not three though, but they went undefeated versus the two branches they did play. So cool. Like I mentioned earlier, got water from my water bottle earlier. So great. Have fun at USC Coliseum. USC, by the way, did just get blown yesterday too, against UCLA. So, by the way, too, before we end the show, shout out to Nebraska. Matt and Josh Pitt brought this up. They're going to a bowl game. How about that? Scott Frost, that's something he couldn't do, but Matt Rule did. Mariola, 6-5. How about that? And what's up with that? Nebraska going to a bowl game? Man, that's crazy, right? But yeah, here they are. Congrats. That's a huge deal for them. By the way, it's been bad. 8 years, I believe, almost a decade since the last time they were at a bowl game and playing in December. Like, that's insane. But yeah, they're going to a bowl game. How about that? But yeah, Notre Dame, USC, Code Red. This next one, same thing, Code Red with Iowa State, Kansas State. Iowa State can still get the Big 12 championship game, believe it or not. Though it's not likely. I'm just updating the graph. My Google Doc here. Spelling mistake. Just noticed, but this is still a Code Red for me. I believe this game's on the road, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check here. Kansas. Yeah, it's on the road. So it's a road game for Kansas State, not a road game for Iowa State. But Iowa State, again, they're a team that's, struggled at times this year. They're not invincible. Not the character Invincible, by the way. It's a good show, by the way, but on Amazon, at least the first season was. Heard mixed opinions on the second season. But they're not invincible. And Kansas State's not a good road team, which has been kind of a theme for them. Kansas State's not bad either. Kansas State, I believe it's 8-3. I said 8-3 going into this game. They're a talented team, very good team. This would be a huge win for Iowa State too. Again, it's Farmageddon. It's a rivalry game. Last year was a blizzard almost. I don't May have to be the case this year, but still concerned here. Very concerned about this game. It's code red. I'm watching it. This last one, LSU Oklahoma. It's a home game for LSU. It's a yellow. Mildly concerned. Um, it's a yellow because I'm wondering. I wonder how much momentum that Bama win for Oklahoma has for Oklahoma, and can they use this as a springboard? Like Auburn last week, is this a springboard? Was this weekend a springboard weekend for these teams? I guess bleeding this in next year, or is it a blip on the radar? I don't know. I believe according to FanDuel, LSU's your favorite. I don't know by who, how much. I should have wrote this down. 5.5. Okay, so it's close spread. FanDuel and Vegas believes it'll be a close game. So that one's a Cody Yellow. I'll make sure to put this all, like the upset alerts and whatnot, on Twitter timely. Hopefully before Saturday, if I remember. But again, we're only doing one show this week, so it won't be too bad. Got some Bucs reaction here real quick. We'll just breeze through this. Not much to really say. 3-7 win. Good. First win for Tampa. And then, by the way, if you're not an NFL fan, you can leave now. If you're like a college football fan, you just want to hear my thoughts on college football, then you can leave. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you guys next week. Not this coming up week, but the week after. Should be championship week, by the way. So how about that? I have full previews and stuff throughout the week. Normal week after this week is simply, well, the first of multiple weird weeks coming up. I'll touch more on that the following week when our plans are for the Christmas holiday. So just be aware of that. Not much to really say here for Tampa. Again, you looked good running the football, throwing the football. Baker had a good day. Running the football, you had an insane touchdown run. Bucky Irving had a career day too, both catching the ball and running the football, just in efficient insanity. Like Evans' back looked good. Not much to really say here. I mean, the Giants. They're 2-9 for a reason. They're not a good team. It sucks, but I'm not a Giants fan. I don't cover the Giants on here really, but as we sort of part our ways here, and we move on, and they move on. At least for this channel's purposes and this show's purposes. It's gonna be a tough year. They're definitely gonna be vying for that number one overall pick. Them and the Raiders, and I believe the Jags are the only two teams that are vying for it now because Hines won today. Shocker. Literally, I was surprised by that. But Tampa flexed their muscles today. Looked good. First win in over a month. They get Carolina this weekend. Thoughts on that game? Here real quick. The spread, by the way, for this Bucs Panthers game, it's on the road too. First game though, because again, it's division games. There's 2 games every single year. I don't know why I have to say that. If you've been watching NFL for a while, but for anyone who doesn't follow it, yes, you play your divisional teams twice a year. So the Saints will play again. Tampa will play the Panthers again. They'll at some point, they'll play both the Saints and Panthers again. So. But FanDuel has this as a 6.5 point spread for this game in favor of Tampa on the road. I have seen Panthers in person before this year. It was when the Chargers came to town there in Charlotte. I don't think I revealed that, but yeah, that's where I was like for week 3 of college football. But so I was at that game. I was in person. I've seen the team in person. I've seen Bryce Young in person, though he was several hundred feet away from me, or I guess around 200 feet away, because I was in the upper deck there at Bank of America. But you didn't know all that. But not much to really say for Panthers. I mean, they're limited on offense. Yes, I know they were competitive today versus the Chiefs, but the team just seems weird to me. Like Dave Canales is the coach there, so he's a former Bucs assistant. He was the OC last year, so if the Panthers were to pull this off, it's somehow, some way they're able to do this. That's how, I guess, with Dave Canales' familiarity with Todd Bowles, and is there stuff that obviously he knows the good and the bad, right? He faced literally those exact same coaching staff and players, basically. So he knows all about that Todd Bowles defense. He knows how to probably expose it. Can he do that? Can Bryce Young do it? And his third go around against Tampa look at his fourth chance probably come December or January. He doesn't get hurt or anything, but that's the only way I can see Carolina winning this game if Dave Canales is able to keep things open against a Tampa defense that has been had on. The Giants were able to do that, so that's good. But grant you the caliber of play, the Giants and I guess the Panthers not as good as 49ers or heck even what you have with the Saints coming up. Because the Saints are now all of a sudden a team that's been rising up from the grave, and not to mention you have the Cowboys coming up too. So these aren't necessarily give-me's. Um, but yeah, I saw the Panthers in person. Not overly impressed. There's some limitations there on offense. So again, unless Dave Canales knows something we don't know and has a way to expose the tall bulls of Tampa defense, haven't been there last year. We'll see. We'll see what he can scheme up. And based on that number 6.5, again, it's on the road, but the atmosphere when I was there at the game was more of a neutral site game because there's a lot of LA fans there. So it was definitely a pro LA crowd, even though it's an East Coast team. So it doesn't make any sense, but that's what happens when you have one of the worst teams in the NFL. When you go to a game there. I mean, it was like this. The Browns are bad, and it's definitely looked like it. The Giants today definitely was a more pro Tampa crowd today up there in East Rutherford, New Jersey. They say they're the New York Giants, but the game's not in New York. But yeah, CBS had the good angle views of like the Statue of Liberty in Central Park. They didn't get the Empire State Building or the Center, but anyway, I say all that to say I think the Bucs win Sunday, but just because Dave Canales' history of Tampa. Again, he used to coach there. He knows the defense. He may have some stuff, some surprises potentially. I think the Panthers keep close. I think they can. I think there's a path there. So I think Tampa wins, but I think this is a close game. Probably more of a low-scoring game. Again, with the familiarity with Canales and defense, I expect there to be more of a low. Same with tall bulls too, and vice versa. It's not like it's a one-sided street here, but expect this to be low-scoring, and also suspect that Dave Canales could scheme some stuff up against a very susceptible Tampa defense that's been had on. You can go watch. You get a reminder the Kansas City game, the Baltimore game, the 49ers game, both Atlanta games, and so forth, and even parts of the Saints game too. First one. So that's the show. How about that? Got it just within an hour and 12 minutes. It's almost midnight too, so I'm gonna get this shipped off. I'm gonna edit this tomorrow morning. So the podcast will come out tomorrow. The live show will stay on here. I'll edit it, stuff obviously, but it's late here. It's essentially tomorrow. It's now essentially as I'm live now, Monday morning. So until next week, which is now next week, because we're in the current week. Enjoy your week. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to our U.S. viewers, our international viewers. Just have a good week. Enjoy the game this weekend, rivalry week, last week of the regular season. For some of you, your last game of the year. Sad, I know. Crying emoji inserted there. May as well. Whatever term you want to use. Again, disclaimer: no shows Tuesday, or no show Tuesday, no show Thursday, obviously, and then no show Friday like I originally planned. But you'll make do. We combined this together. It's fine. It was an hour show, and we really basically did two shows in one under an hour. So that's about that. That's pretty impressive. So until basically next Tuesday after this week, again, enjoy Thanksgiving if you're in the U.S. If you're not, enjoy your week, enjoy the games, and we will reconvene on December 3rd. How about that? So until then, take care. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you